Alright, and switching it over. There it goes. Welcome back to Moon's Remorse. I believe this is session 17. And last session, the group opted to side with Stenin, who... Oh, that's funny. Hold on a second. That should be better. They opted to side with Stenin in the combat against the fortress. They flew on griffins up to the top of the keep, were dropped down, skirmished with a couple of the guards there, and fortunately defeated them, headed deeper into it. Stenin disappeared. They basically secured the keep. And then the king arrived at the keep. The king of the kingdom of Stormloft arrived and basically put to the task Lazarus to find out if there is a means of using this portal to reopen it and return them, the people who want to bring the fight back to those who just left it. If there's a means to use that to their advantage or not. So yeah, I leave you there. You've spent the night there at the keep, probably spending a bit of time gathering whatever resources, information in the keep's library, what have you, doing what you can to try and kind of gather yourself. But I'm basically leaving the floor open to you for directionality, so feel free to discuss what you're doing in character while I enjoy a bowl of ramen. I'm listening, and we'll answer your questions mid-slurps.
So, what's the plan, wizard?
I think we should, the king said he'd be able to get other mages or wizards, right, to help us. Or, like, we'd be able to do that, like, send the word out. So I think we should do that. To get, like, more magical folk to help us power the portal or re-power the portal. I think that'd be a good idea. I think it'd also be a good idea to try and find some sort of magical device or thing that would help us, like, jumpstart the portal, if that's an option.
So researching that kind of thing here in the library hasn't given you much information. The couple of objects you found mention of that might be of interest to you in the jump starting seem kind of ancient, hidden, lost away, buried within the sands of time. Nothing terribly noticeable that jumps out at you. However, in thinking about it, one of the main things that kind of pops into your head as an option is the ships that the conglomerate uses run off of spell engines, which are powered by, like, elementals basically bound in them. You're pretty sure that if you had a spell engine for one of those ships, you could use it to jumpstart the portal.
So, go get a ship and, like, reverse engineer the spell engine for our benefits, or our purposes.
Easy as that.
You know that at your current disposal, you do have the flight of the Golden Wings and the remainder of the Griffin militia that was stationed here. You also know where three ships went north and 3 ships went south.
And we have the king and all his men and all that.
King's not going to roll with you. No, it's not.
No, but I mean, that we could have, like, whatever we needed to get the job
Resource-wise, he'll give you what he can, but air combat-wise, what I listed to you, the Golden Wings, the flight of the Golden Wings and the Griffins, is literally your only aerial combatants that you have.
Yeah, but we could, like, use them to get on board with, like, an elite squad, because we could be equipped.
The Golden Wings and the Griffin group are the elite squads. Yeah, they're pretty strong.
They're the B team.
So we could Hail Mary try and take one of these ships, which is also something Lazarus wants to do. And then, yeah, try and get the spell engine.
And we know one of the ships was headed back towards
Squall?
There were
Squallow.
3 that were heading northeast. You're not sure if Squallow would have been like something they would have cared about, or they would have just passed by. You would also know if that they continued on that venue, they would have either gone into the Seiryu borderlands, or they would have continued on north by northeast, but closer to north, towards the Galatia region, which continues on to the Elvish province of Varquin, where the Savarius Academy is located, where most elf mages have gained most of their initial training. It's Elf City. It's also a gate city that connects the material world to the Feywild.
Are these ships always in the air, or do they ever like land or dock for supplies or whatever?
So far as you've seen, they've only
Don't they
been
use
in
like, don't they legit have that like beam up portal?
They do legit
like when
have
they-
a beam up portal.
Yeah, wouldn't that be like how they get their supplies and stuff?
Do we remember all the
Just
ships?
Man, if we can
There,
get
I
to,
would assume so.
if we can somehow hide ourselves amongst the supplies, that would be kind of cool. We could just beam up there.
In truth, you have actually never seen a ship touch the ground.
Except for when it was pulled to the ground via.
It didn't touch it before it blew up. It blew up before
Ah.
it did.
Speaking of, the closest we've seen to a ship being taken, it self-destructed. Do we have any means of knowing what caused that, or how to prevent that happening in the event that we're trying to take a ship?
I don't believe that the elf has rolled an Arcana check to try and figure that out, so I'll allow him an Arcana check to
Do we
that.
not also have that prisoner? Couldn't we just like interrogate him and ask him about it?
As you learned last session, he's a bit more of a soldier type and not so much a mage. So your assumption is that he probably wouldn't know the inner workings of the spell engine.
Great, here's my Arcana check. 25.
Hey,
Really good. So what you would know is that the typical binding is of air elementals, which are bound to the spell engine and sometimes the exterior of the ship to maintain its aloft. And as they're kind of bound, there's an agreement in that binding that states that they're not basically going to come into contact directly with their antithesis, so the earth. And if that kind of binding becomes basically not applicable, they're released from their bindings. When that happens, the spell energy that maintains the binding detonates. So it really probably wasn't even someone self-destructing it. It was because it was pulled down to the earth. Is the
If you
reason
try
why
to
it's
land the
pulled.
ship,
Cool.
it goes boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know.
The 3 ships we saw, were they all do we remember if they were all the same size, or was one like a capital ship, where the other is
The
smaller?
capital ship was the one that's detonated over Dragons. The other 6 that you are aware of were smaller ships.
But they all were about the same size.
All of them were about the same size. Basically, the best way to think about it is size-wise, in comparison, the Alacoris, the ship that detonated, was like a aircraft carrier size-wise, and then the smaller ships were basically smaller destroyers or frigates.
I think we could take one if we have the golden boys with us. I think the hardest part now would be to catch up to them,
I think we can take all 3.
unless they've stopped somewhere.
How fast do fucking griffins travel?
Great question. Something you can look up in the monster manual for sure.
do we know which? You said there were 2 groups of 3, one going south, one going northeast.
Correct.
Do we know which would have traveled further at this amount of time?
They probably would have been traveling at about the same speed.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and pull us back to the world map real quick. And by real quick, I mean give me a second. It's taking forever to load. It's taking forever to load! I love Roll20. I guess it's faster than sending messages through the post. Could you imagine playing D&D like that? It's like, here's the map, you guys. 2 weeks later.
It's the way it used to be, right?
I don't know. You tell us, Andy. Oh!
Sick burn. Actually, that's
You wa-
probably a little before my time.
You walked right into it, to be fair.
I did. It's all right.
Are you on the map? Does it show you on the map?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, do you see where Dryanes is located?
Yes.
And you see where Netton is located? To the south?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you see where Squallow's located? To the northwest or northeast?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your presumption is that it was either heading towards Squallow into the borderlands, which would include the city of Oku and Seriu, or it was kind of edging off towards Galatia region. See those smaller mountains and then the mountains on the left side? Like there's like a valley in between? That's known as the Galatia region. If you go through the Galatia region into the lands of Barwin, there's a direct route past those lands to Talania, which is the elven capital I had mentioned. And then the shift that went south, we're actually kind of going at a southeasterly rate. They are either going to Netton or Rastagar, 2 kingdoms to the south. Possibly Bicavaria, but it didn't look like a direct line.
So
I
we
think
go east.
I was gonna say south. Stay in the human, and I feel like going to Seriu or into the glaciers would be the most dangerous.
Galatia, not glaciers. It's not frozen.
Oh, never mind. Okay,
I wanna
maybe that's okay then.
Nip that on the in the bud real quick. So the Galatia region, it is actually quite. It's a bit of a wildlands. So there are a lot of hill giants and creatures known as Fomorians, which have spilled out from the Feywild into the material plane that kind of rule tribal giant groups in those lands. And then the lands beyond that, the lands of Barwin and the Centerlands, they're mainly grasslands and forests, but are typically pretty well guarded by enclaves of elves. As you may well know, elves do not live in cities that they control. They do not ever take power as per the rules of Asia, which is the rule that this world is man's world. Elves do not rule it. The reason why Talania is an exception is because that city does not actually rest in the material plane. It rests in both the material plane and the Feywild. And so it's called a gate city as well. It is the only city in the world that even the elves would know that elves rule. Besides that, elves live in other people's cities, but they're never ruling parties.
Alright, so the way I figure it, we go in, if we end up in Elfland, we got 1.5 elves. That's a good start. We also, if we run into Fey stuff, we got a man of the wild who knows about that stuff. That's good. Or if we head into Seriu, we got an Asian man. He knows stuff. And I hit things real good, so we're kind of equipped.
Doesn't Isaac have some kind of jurisdiction as far as being a magistrate, or what was it?
No, I just kind of command some basic levels of respect wherever I go as a anointed knight.
Everybody here except you is a cop up in Squallow too.
Cool.
I can pretty much go anywhere and have at least a little bit of, as long as it's like a first world, like a nation.
I wasn't sure if it was centered around a particular region.
I can do similar things as long as it's super shady.
The passageway to the south, there are 2 routes that you're aware of. Jun would be aware of the Serpent's Trench, which is a waterway that actually comes off of the Squallow River and actually burrows underground. It moves through most of the city, and it does so at a southeasterly route. It moves and comes and deposits out just near the Cathpaw River, which is, if you look at the map, you can see that there's a small streamline that kind of goes from just above Netton all the way down to the Shattered Coast. That's the Catspaw. And, well, actually, the Catspaw isn't the long river. It's the small river that has a fork off of it. The Catspaw ends at that lake there, which I don't have the
Could
name
we rock the cat's paw?
for. Rock the Cat's Paw. Good choice. Good choice. But that would be if you wanted to take the Serpent's Trench. That, or you can move overground. And if you move overground, assumably you'd be doing that. It's arguable which manner of travel would be faster, because the Serpent's Trench is really fast. The boats that were used, the boats that are used to go down it are basically, if you've ever been to like an amusement park like Great America or Six Flags or something like that, and you've been in one of those big rubber rafts that just get shot down like the rapids, it's like that but underground.
Might want to stick to the air because we're gonna have to like land on one of these ships anyways to take it. But yeah, so which one do you guys want to go for? The one we thought was heading into Siriu, or the one potentially heading into Elven lands? I'm good with either.
I think the one going south, or the three rather going south, are going to be easier to track because there's way more land north of us than there is south. So there's a finite amount of area they're going to cover for the ships that went south, whereas the ones going north could have gone twice as far. It would take longer to catch up to.
It's also not sure which direction they were going, if they were going into Sariu, if they were going into Elven lands.
My vote's for whichever we can like more realistically find and catch. Yeah,
Can we
otherwise there's like no point.
can we delegate with Seth, since like he probably is pretty familiar with
Seth has
this
been
traveling area?
Seth has been around the group and has been there for any questions that you would want to ask. For those of you who have not watched my Song of the Sword campaign, I'll give you a handout here in a second, but go ahead and broach your question.
I was gonna ask him. What he probably knows has a general idea what the plan is. We want to get one of these sky ships and take its core out and use the core to power the portal. So we have 3 different options. We want to see what does he think would be the best in terms of tracking it and
Hold on.
with the griffins.
The core is the elemental thing, yeah?
Yeah. But keep in mind,
The core can't go on the ground.
what I mean to say is, when the core comes down to a point the bond is broken, if the bond is broken before then, the ship will descend down and crash, but you will have the magical core energy. So basically, it can be shut off and just kind of crash land, or it will violently explode if it's forced to land. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to take the spell engine and we're like, oh man, we got it, and we touch down in the keep and it's a fucking...
Oh, no shit, you wouldn't even make it to the keep. It would be like, oh, we're going to the keep. No, you don't want to take the
As
whole
long
engine
as this
with
thing
air
doesn't
element.
detonate when it touches the ground.
You'll
That's
deactivate
all I
it.
wanted to get.
Yeah.
So he can release the air elemental, and what we need is still there.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
the breaking of the bond and the air elemental being free that causes the spell energy to detonate. Basically, it's like, yeah.
Okay, so we can still do this. We're fine. Everything's
Yeah,
fine.
we just gotta make sure
We'll get
once
there.
we turn it off, we get back on our rides and get out of Dodge before we hit the ground.
Yeah, we can do this.
Everybody
Yeah,
got
we-
enough of that sexy Seth High one?
Hashtag believe.
We should probably get more than one chip just in case it fails the first time.
Obviously.
Or we could leave one intact and then have the ship. And
Yeah,
then have
that's
one.
better. A fleet.
Tie 3 of them together.
Well, they're not balloons.
No, it'll be great.
Once we see how easy it is to take one, then we can talk about 2 and 3.
We've got the A team, the B team, and the C team here. We got
It's
this.
like Lay's potato chips. You can't steal just one.
We gotta have all the ships. All the ships.
Here we
so
go,
many
North.
flavors.
I need all the ships. Okay. So he would interject when broached with the question which he thinks is the most. He states that Stormloft Kingdom has always had a good rapport with Netton, not so much with Rostagar, and Bicavaria is a very neutral kingdom compared to the others. More so than the favorability with other kingdoms. If a troop of golden wings and griffins are seen flying over the borders of another country, it would cause a lot of problems. The ships be damned. Like, it's just going to be a situation that it's going to have questions asked. Sure, the ships should be stopped if they are headed in those directions across border lines, but rather it be the conglomerate who gets their problems set to them instead of the conglomerate and Parnak having to work at... basically, another kingdom is attacking another kingdom. The route of that was through our kingdom. There's no reason in chasing them down over border lines. We should deal with the ones that are attacking something in our empire, not something outside of it.
Yeah, fuck Serio.
Yeah.
I've been
Nothing
there.
good ever came from there.
No, it didn't. I don't want to go there. What?
So he's pretty much saying like try to get the one that's heading to Netton since they're like allies.
That's what he would say, yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Or Rastigar, if we went that far, yes. It's still the same country.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so the kingdom of Parnak, or the empire of Parnak, is 6 kingdoms and 1 imperial land. Those 6 kingdoms are Rostagar, Netton, Bicavaria, Stormloft, Aegon, and Sarrowgate. And then there are 2 other countries inside of the empire, but they still swear fealty to the empire. The Dragon Isles of Ciasaid and Prasawa, which is the imperial lands.
Cool. We're going to rock the cat's paw.
Okay, so you would ask then, or how do you guys want to broach the question? If there's anything that you want to try and do in the city before you leave, just tell me what you want to do.
Would there be, I've never been there in game, would there be anything in my house worthwhile?
No.
Alright, I'm abandoning it then, probably.
I mean, it's probably, you were kind of in the nobler section, so.
I'd like to, because we're gonna go against conglomerates again, and I know the Nyctalopes kind of have, was it like, isn't their armor, they take like reduced damage if the weapon hitting them isn't magical or something?
Correct.
Like that? Okay, and I want to approach, so I ask just, is there any way I can have my blade enchanted, or do you guys have any enchanted, like, blades that I can use to, in case we run into that problem? Because I had one, and something happened to it, now it's not magical anymore.
We can't really relinquish our weaponry. You can ask the king, but I don't know if he would be too keen on that matter. If you have any friends in the city, they might be able to help better than us.
I could ask a favor of the Hierophant, perhaps. We're friends, kind of.
Okay. You're asking who again?
Donovan.
From the fold?
Yeah.
One of the fold. Is there any, maybe there's some hidden armory or something within the church? I don't know.
Make a persuasion check.
$26.
Okay. Speaking to the members of the Great Church, you think about it, and your actual mentality kind of focuses in on the dwarves for assistance in this. And they say they don't have anything in the longsword variety, but they'd be willing to relinquish a battle axe to you that is magically enchanted.
That works for me. I've been trained in all manner of weaponry.
Okay. You are granted a +1 battle axe of Dwarven
Cool.
make.
Does the blade have a name, or it's just a magical weapon?
They tell you that the name of this axe is Fury.
Works for me.
And if you want to make a history check, you can.
Real quick, it was piercing or magical. They had the same effect on the Michelob, right?
Piercing and
bludgeoning.
bludgeoning. Slashing, not so good. You kind of have an inkling that the sword, or the axe doesn't really have a history of its own. In that a lot of dwarves have named their axes Fury over the ages. It seems to be just a pretty mundane battle axe, double-headed, and kind of a darkish blackened blade. Looks like the edges of it are kind of rusted out a bit. Or not rusted out, but beaten out, like it's seen a lot of use.
So that's not the same Fury as the other campaign.
Yep, I saw you pulling out your Dead of Ages.
Yeah, it's like it.
Yep.
Cool.
No.
I thanked him greatly. Put it to good use.
Okay. Go ahead and skipping off of Steve. Anybody else have anything that they want to do? Interject. Try and figure out. Grab. Get a hold of.
I want to travel across town back to the Margan's holdup, even though it's been blown up, and kind of sift through the rubble and see if there's anything left there
Okay.
of note.
You would find that it looks like it's actually maintained a decent amount of its structure, even though the roof is basically caved in parts. What you do find is that it looks like it's been cleaned out. Whoever was here last did their best to make sure that everything kind of left with them. You do see that there is a notice, though, in the cant, basically kind of etched out on a couple of places that denotes that a retreat was enacted here, and that the Mardigan group that was placed here has retreated to the city of Netton.
Okay, and then if I were to go to the safe house and the bar and all that, it's probably similar. Same thing happened.
Yeah.
So no cool stuff got left behind.
I don't think rogues are the type to leave stuff.
Nah, probably not. But I mean, you get in a hurry.
Sure. It doesn't really look like... There's a nice bottle of Elvish wine. Looks like it's pretty decent vintage at the bar.
I'll just drink it. I'm gonna save them that.
Yeah. You have a bit of a hard walk back home, but due to the inebriation, but other than that, you're good. Cypress.
I'll share some when I get back.
Okay. Cypress, Ithel, Lazarus.
I've got nothing going on in this city.
Agreed.
Chilling, reading.
Nobody
I'm not
wants...
getting wasted. I'm not getting wasted if we're about to start riding Eagle somewhere.
Nobody's trying to acquire any resources, 300 gold peace signs, or anything like that. Nobody's trying to get, like...
Do we have money for healing potions?
anything. Doesn't seem like there are any merchants who are selling any potions, really.
I would tell Lazarus, when Lazarus was made Vizier of the King, was he given any sort of badge of station, anything like that? Or is he just kind of like, this is your job now?
The king said that if he felt it was something that was important, he would write a writ and grant it.
Get that writ.
Isaac, how about like
That's
extra
what I'm saying.
rope?
Like, we have that ability to be well equipped for this mission. Like, if you guys need stuff.
But not in this town. We have to go to a different town to get it equipped.
What about extra rope and grappling hooks?
That would be smart.
You could probably find those in just like a broken down common store on the way. Well, like the city's been ravaged. Most mundane goods can be found in a workable station.
Yeah, get something that says this. We're here on kingly business. Get out of our way, because that's probably going to be useful.
Yeah, if it's something you guys want to do. Sky's the limit. You're in a city. The city's been sacked. A lot of the people are basically being returned to their homes or opening up their boarding on their houses. The king is here and says if it's something he deems as something that you should have, you're not like, you walk up to him and you know, can I have like a suit of golden wing armor and also a giant eagle and also like all of the money in the king's coffers? He's probably not going to write that writ. But if you think like, you know, I need some sort of like spell component, or I need some sort of like, you know, potions or something from the local like vendors if possible, he'd probably be like, yeah, sure.
Like a
How about-
sweet alchemy. No.
How about the spell components for Revivify?
You'd ask and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so I'd want to do that.
We do it. What happens?
So
Okay, so he's asking for 300 gold pieces worth of diamonds for a specific spell.
Right, with the purpose that this is going to help this team get the mission done.
1,200 in case we all die.
The king snaps his fingers, gestures for someone to come over. The person starts writing with a fine quill pen. 300 gold pieces of diamonds for a spell component. What else?
Cypress would speak up. I'm going to need a small fan and an exotic bird feather.
Small fan, exotic bird feather. Probably can be found in a curio shop. Just write a writ. We'll pay for it.
Also, if we're going to be flying again, there's every possibility that we could be falling again.
You hear no, there's not.
There's not?
Yeah. The Seth behind you says, no, there's not.
We're not falling? There's no chance of us falling?
Unless that bird dies, you're not falling.
Anyone want to chime in? I'm not...
What if that bird dies?
What if the bird dies?
They're very, very, very well trained. They're not gonna let you drop. If you do fall off, they're gonna do a cool and scoop you back up or something.
Yeah, but we're gonna be like boarding a
Fireball.
skyship. I was gonna see if we could. Okay, I was just gonna see if we could get like featherfall potions or something like that in case of emergency.
It'll be good.
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
That's what I was going for.
Kevin, do you have anything?
Because we are planning on deactivating a ship that's flying.
Make us not die from falling? No, I don't.
No, make us invisible.
I can make a person invisible, and unless Steve can carry all of us, or
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
the druid
think so.
can carry all of us.
Turns
Yeah,
into a
man.
rhino, we all got on his back. Easy.
Oh, I would love to. I want to so bad.
How big is the engine in the spell engine?
Lazarus thinks that for a ship that size is probably, pretty decent 500-pound, block of meat or metal.
Could we get you on a bag of holding in which to put it?
Bag holding, we're good.
Okay.
Would it
Flying
fit
back.
inside? Would you be able to
Yeah,
get
it'll
it into
fit.
it? Okay.
Just dump all the garbage out, shove that in.
Is anyone else asking him for anything?
That's our food.
'Cause I want to ask him for 10 gold pieces worth of charcoal so I can summon my boy.
Bro, they've been bombing this place with fire. Walk outside and get it.
It has to be specific.
Has to be special,
charge.
yeah.
Yeah.
This whole town is charcoal.
So yeah, I'd want to ask him for that, and then yeah, I'd totally ask him if we could get potions, like healing potions, if featherfall potions are a thing.
2 apiece.
Like
For potions of healing. Does that do?
Nice.
anything.
Is he capable of like upgrading our own personal protections and armaments?
I do not believe so. He looks to Seth. Seth is shaking his head. Unfortunately, no. If you have manner or means to requisition items from those within the constabulary or the township, I can attempt to rid it off, but I doubt they'll be sparing weaponry in this current time.
Like we need to get Steve a piercing weapon, or
Oh, I have one.
You get a
yeah,
lance.
you got
You got a look.
I picked up a lance.
What about a writ we could use in the town of Netton for the same purpose?
I'm not the king of Netton.
Very well.
that. Okay, but we're gonna. So we got potions, charcoal, other regions. We're getting all that.
Yeah. So you basically spend a bit of time in the morning after asking the king for these articles and go around and basically pick these up from shops in the town, displaying the writ and having the person sign the writ so that they are notating what they are basically lending out. You're pretty familiar with this process, Lazarus. You've never had the, grace to have a writ, but you know how this works. Basically, the writ will be paid back after war times are concluded at 10 times the normal cost to the merchant. So it behooves them to do it, but they will be out the cost at the time.
Dude,
Like
writ something
guy-
from me.
Yeah,
Guy
that,
who's getting rid of the diamonds just made bank.
yeah.
3,000 coin. Yep.
Take my diamonds.
Thanks, conglomerate. Made me rich.
Oh, I mean, yeah, no. His shop is when you go to the gem dealer. He's like a little gnome, you know, looking around, just like like he's got bags of stuff he's been collecting. He's like blowing stuff off of his stones and putting them in bags, carefully trying to like just suss out his material from this broken hovel. And he looks to you guys and says, "What do you want?" And you're like, "Do you have 300 gold pieces worth of diamonds?" "I'm a little busy here." And you're like, "Rit," and he's like, "Yeah, I've got 300 gold. Shit, yeah, it's there. Here it is. Take it. It's a little dirty, but you can have it. Thanks." And he just sits
I
there
like
with the
this
Rit,
guy.
and hearts are just floating over his head and money signs. So he's just his bad day went from shit to the best day possible.
What can I quick hand out of there while that's happening?
Make a sleight of hand check or stealth
Oh,
check, your
shit.
choice.
23.
Okay, contested by the gnome. Okay, you see Jun kind of like moving aside as you guys are talking. You're not really paying attention to him, so you don't really see him actually. But you see the gnome kind of like raise his hand, and this big blue force ram slams into Jun. Jun take 24 points of damage, and you're thrown against the back wall. And he says, "Thief!
Oh my god!
Take your friend
Ow.
and get out of here!"
I'm just admiring your wares.
"Yeah, okay. Well, don't pick them up. They're mine." And he kind of holds the ring up, and you
Brush
see
a
it's still
couple off for
glowing.
you.
"Get out of
When
here!"
I brush it on my sleeve and hand it back to him.
You hear a voice coming from across the way, and he says, "Jeremiah, you're having a problem in there?" "No, they're fine. They're just leaving."
Can't take this guy anywhere.
No, you can't. Stop trying.
Oh
I
my
wish
God.
Jeremiah were a more important character because I love this so much.
I rolled a natural.
Jeremiah, we're a bullfrog.
I wish he was a. He's a bull ram. My jokes are bad. Let's go. What next? So you get your items, you acquire your things. Do you plan on leaving today or?
ASAP, because we gotta catch up, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna take 10-15 minutes to summon my familiar, so I have him with me.
What form?
He's fucking here.
So raccoon? Or do you want to give him?
No, we're gonna be in the air. Can I turn him into a... Let's just be corneal, have an owl.
He is an owl, and it's like a barn owl, right? Like, you know, the labyrinthian, like, owl. But the thing about him is he's different in that he has black circles around his eyes that connect in the middle point like a little bandit's mask.
Sick.
And he kind of, when he's summoned, he kind of like... and then he kind of looks up at you like... and just stares at you with his big hooty owl eyes, and you realize he's like, "What the fuck?" What the... like, why would you do this to me?
We had
You'll
a thing
prefer
going.
this form when you realize where we're about to go, my friend. And I kind of shake my head.
Where are my hands?
He kind of like
God,
closes his
doing
wings,
this.
and he kind of like, you know, he kind of closes his wings, and he kind of like takes his attention off of you, and you see his head turn upside down, and he's just like,
See, he already likes it better.
yeah, he starts to love it.
So we were given 2 potions of healing.
A piece,
Each?
yeah.
Were there any other potions?
2 potions of healing,
We got 2 for the group.
2 potions of healing
2
a
each.
piece. Yeah, the potion guy also made bank. There are no other potions that are granted. 300 gold pieces worth of diamonds, which are given to Ithel, I presume.
Yep.
10 gold pieces worth of charcoal for Lazarus. And I believe that was all that was requested.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want a royal decree in case we like have to deal with any officials from Netton? As though we know we're not there to fuck shit up for them. We're here to fuck up conglomerate shit.
Seth kind of and kind of just looks at you.
Oh, they are the royal decree because they're the golden wings.
I'm kind of a big deal. Just imagine Dan saying that, though. That's how he comes off.
So you need a glass of water.
I'm kind of a big deal.
All right, big deal. Let's get wings in the air.
Fair enough. Whenever you're ready. I'll meet you out in the back courtyard near the gardens. And he kind of steps off to the side and heads off to like a side chamber. Doesn't look like he's going directly in the same route that he would need to go, but possibly to go and grab things. You guys all head out to the back courtyard as suggested. No detours or anything to that effect. You see a total of 15 huge golden eagles. Now, when I say they're giant eagles, I don't mean that they are the actual like monster from the Monster Manual, or rather, beast from the Monster Manual, giant eagle. That's not what we're talking about here, because giant eagles are they're big, they're large, but these are not large. These are huge. They are massive birds, very, very big. They have a couple of them have saddles on, a couple of them don't. And as you're kind of walking out to the area, who's kind of taking the lead? Who's the person that's up front?
Cypress really wants to see these eagles.
So he's very kind of rushing ahead. As you kind of get into the area, the birds aren't like tethered to anything. They don't seem to be held down or anything. But one of the birds kind of snaps its head over to the side, and you're just seeing it in profile, and its eye kind of snaps to you, Cypress. And then it goes, "Ah!" And then it spins around in an aggressive fashion. What would you like to do, Cypress?
I'll reach into my pack, give it a food ration.
As you're kind of
See if
reaching into your pack, you very quickly realize the folly that you've granted here. It leaps forward and grabs you with its huge clawed hand, or like foot, and brings you down to the ground and holds you down. You can feel its talons raking into your back, and its talon on the side raking into your hip. As it's doing so, you hear this guy yelling, "Hold! Hold!" And it starts to relinquish the grip, looking down at you, its head like coming down in. You can see its tongue kind of flittering out of its beak, and then it starts to back away. And then you see him kind of reach up and put something over the bird's face, like almost like a large backpack that goes up over the bird's mouth or beak, and he kind of pulls it away from you, leaving you on the ground. Take 5 points of damage as it kind of just releases you on the ground. Again, these birds are some 20 feet or like 15 feet high at the shoulders, just so you have an objective idea. And when it kind of fluttered towards you, you get the idea that the wingspan is probably somewhere in the 30 to 40 foot mark.
I like them.
Massive bird. And the guy who's dealing with that bird kind of pulls away, and you see this other gentleman kind of step forward and says, "Apologies." And he says, "You are the druid from the Griffin raid, are you not?"
That is correct.
Apologies.
Thank you for your assistance.
We've been dealing with your kind in the swamplands to the east of our city, and that one holds a grudge. Its mating, its mating partner was killed by lizard folk. Spears and arrow fire.
No harm done.
We, of course, do not hold anything against you directly. Of course, it wasn't your fault, but the bird is a simpler beast, as I'm sure you're aware.
That you know of.
Are you saying he did it? No.
Yeah, I miraculously killed this 20
This changes everything.
No, that's fine. Again, I thank him, and just sort of admire the birds from afar.
Lord Highwind had mentioned that you would be riding with us as just I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and let you ride with me, so you don't have to ride with Benjin over there. You see the guy kind of looking over, like, at you. He doesn't look like he's mad. He just looks like he's wary, to be sure. And he kind of leads you over to his bird.
So we're riding the actual eagles. We're not riding griffins this time.
Looks like the eagle riders are going to be taking you this time. Yeah. Cool. Ithel, Isaac, Lazarus, Jun. Anything you guys are doing?
I guess just kind of sizing up. Is there a bird that seems to be like alpha bird, like bigger than the others, or has
Everyone
some
just
sort of
tossed
dormant?
Cypress around like a little bitch.
That one's like the biggest.
Does
He
appear to
fell
be-
to alpha.
It does
I
appear
like
to be
him.
quite big. Yeah.
5 points of damage makes him an alpha. Gnomes hit harder.
I want to ride that one.
Well, you bring him back in here and you tell him to lead the flock.
I want
I'm
to
gonna ride that gnome in the
I'm gonna
battle.
ride the gnome in a battle. Yeah! Get off of me! They're my
Just keep stealing his
diamonds!
shit.
Oh my goodness. Okay. As you kind of approach the gentleman who you overheard the name of Benjin was given to the rider with the the more aggressive eagle. He kind of looks over at you. He's kind of got a bag, on the beak of his bird. He kind of looks over to you and he says, "Hail, yeah, we're hail," and kind of just looks like he's a bit flustered.
Something on your mind? It's not good to go into battle with a heavy conscience.
Just a bit embarrassed. Yeah. Shimmer never, he's never done anything like that. Especially since I commanded him beforehand, as he was approaching, to stay calm. He kind of looks up at the bird, and the bird kind of like looks down at him, like with a sorry eye. Like it definitely looks like the bird has emotion, and it looks like it's genuinely depressed at this point.
Maybe that one should stay behind.
You
Sad
kidding me?
bird.
That bird's got gumption.
Benjamin kind of looks over to. Did you say that aloud, John?
A little, yeah. Loud enough.
He kind of looks over to you and he says, "If one of us stays, all of us stay." So, I apologize. I do apologize to your friend. If you get a chance to speak to him, I'm going to stay here and make sure my bird's fine. But are you? What's your intent? You came to speak to me about the matter, or?
Oh, no. I'm just standing here.
He was more talking to Isaac on that last
Oh.
part.
No, I'd like to, if we're riding with you, I'd like to ride with you, specifically.
Me specifically. Even after what you transgressed, you're not terribly upset by that?
No. I don't know. I've been told I have a bit of an aura for courage. Perhaps, we can inspire one another, you, me, and Shimmer here.
Very good. Well, I'm just about to load saddle and prepare myself. If you have anything, you can have the saddlebags on her right flank, or on his right flank. Nods his head. Lazarus, Jun, Ithel, you're not too far behind Isaac. You see that his mission is acquire mount, acquire buddy, begin riding process.
I think that Jun is asking for some heals, right?
I am quietly asking Cypress. You don't draw attention to that.
Oh, because you got slammed in the chest?
Because I got my ass beat in the chest.
By the gnome?
Yeah,
ring,
dude.
Yeah, ring of the ram, dude. Don't mess around.
Ring
You
of
whooped
the
my
ram.
ass. Oh, yeah, I'm plotting my revenge on that guy, and I'm going to wear that ring.
Take every single damn gem he has.
And that ring.
Do me a favor, actually, John. Make a intelligence history check, just for the lulls.
History's 5.
Okay. So yeah, you don't recall him. Something about him, like after getting pummeled by him, kind of like jogged your memory for just a moment, and you're pretty sure you're supposed to remember who that guy is, but you don't remember who that guy is. That gnome. Anyways,
I don't remember, so...
birds. You guys are just gonna don't care who you mount up with. It's fine, right? Except for
Whoever takes me, takes me.
okay,
I'm gonna throw Cure Wounds on Jun.
okay.
There you
Ithel,
go.
Lazarus, any like? Do you want to look for one specific individual? Try and get to know your writer, or should I just move on to
No, I think that's fine. I'm not gonna make any sudden moves. Just wait until they sort of call me over, and then I get on the bird.
Yeah, I'm not particular.
Okay. Cypress, as you kind of walk over to the bird with the gentleman that was with you, he states that his name is Anard, Anard. And the bird, you see it, it's kind of like coiled in like a bird just kind of like sitting and roosting. It looks like the size of a horse at this point. But as he comes closer, it starts to kind of rise up and extend out its form, and it's massive. It's like the size of a building. He kind of walks over to it, and you see him reach into his side pouch, pull out what looks like a trout, toss it up. Bird just snaps it out of the air in one swift bite, just swallows the whole thing. He says, "So this is my mount, we'll just need to go through a couple of quick processes here just to make sure that you're safe." And he kind
Is
of
Anard like a captain, or is he?
You
a
know
rank?
that
Is there anything important?
the master of the Golden Wings is Seth Highwind.
Seth.
He would be the one that rides out in front of the vanguard.
Okay, he's just another one of the riders then.
Yeah.
Okay.
You presume because he just took action, he's a go-getter. He makes a gesture for the bird, a very specific gesture which you haven't seen before, and the bird starts to lower itself down back to its original posture and kind of lowers its neck out against the ground. As the bird does so, Anard throws a saddle over the back of it and pulls several different straps down and around the front of the bird. Once he's got that done, he starts to kind of perform these marks with his fingers, like arcane marks on the cinches that he ties, and he says like a very small prayer. You think in Elvish. Do you speak Elvish?
I do not.
Okay, so just gibberish to you, really. But he starts kind of moving his hands across like the cinches and connection points that he makes on the saddle, and then he kind of looks to you, and you can see that the saddle he's thrown on there, it looks like it's got a double bow to it, so it looks like you can seat two. As he kind of moves over to the saddle, he walks to you and he says, "Come here." And he says, "Upon mounting, when we do mount, what you need to do is this gesture," and he shows you a gesture which kind of it appears to be an Avarian cross, basically a cross with a diamond pattern over it. And he says, "And say these words," and he says 3 Elvish words to you, which you don't know what they mean, but you know them. You know the 3 words, and you kind of practice it and kind of try and get it out of your lizard folk mouth. And he says, "No, it's," and then "No, it's,"
Sure.
and finally you get it. And he says, "Perfect. When you mount the saddle, it is very important that you do this."
So in order, hand gesture, 3 words in Elvish
Correct.
before attempting to saddle.
You'll have no indicator that you did it right, other than when the time comes, you'll know that you did it right. If the
I'm
time
alive.
comes. Correct.
I like these birds.
The bird kind of looks over at you.
What's this little guy's name?
This little guy's name
Oh, look at the puppy.
is Lightning. And
Ciao.
he helps you out with that. Isaac, you are walked through the same process with the cinching by the gentleman that you are kind of operating with, as is everyone else. Lazarus, I need a Arcana check from you.
21.
Very good. So these birds have kind of history to them in Elvish culture too. The golden birds of Stormloft are quite renowned. They're a bit more than just regular giant eagles, and not quite as powerful as a phoenix. But when it comes to like emblazoned magical energies, they have some that kind of builds up within these birds. You know that during earlier times of man, they would kill these birds and rip them apart to use their innards and whatnot for magical rituals. But ever since the Aetan Concordat in the past, humans have been a bit more reliable at keeping the sacred creatures of the world alive. The cinching, what's happening here is you're using the inherent magic of the creature to basically make sure that these straps never come undone. And basically by performing a small rite. The words are basically "fasten, never let slip," are the words that are spoken over the cinching, which you assume will work, but you don't know if it has an actual spellcraft matter to it. It just seems like it's more of a ritual that's performed by the writers as something that they've been taught to do. You're not sure if it actually has an actual function. The marking of a Variu over the saddle and the speaking of the 3 words seems to actually activate the saddle. And as you kind of look it over and kind of inspect it, you realize that it actually has a conduit for the magic of the bird. And what it seems to do is, once the activation is done, whoever sits upon the saddle basically has a untriggered, ready to go featherfall cast upon them as they sit there on the saddle. That lasts until they leave the saddle.
You get like a parachute, pretty much.
Correct. And Seth's
Okay, that's cool.
boisterous remarks of "you will never fall" kind of make a bit more sense now. Speaking of Seth, you guys see that the soldiers are the Golden Wing members are putting on their helmets, their long yellow cloaks, and putting themselves out. You do see that Seth's cloak is also bright yellow, despite what it was in the picture, and he puts on his helmet as well, his large greatsword on his back, and he walks over to his bird and mounts it. It seems to have been made ready for him while he was out and away by an attendant. In Elvish, he yells out commands. You hear him say, "We are heading to the south. We are chasing the interlopers who seek to destroy the fellow kingdom of Netton. We must ride quick and we must ride hard." And he looks down at his bird, and you see him whisper something to it. And the bird kind of, and kind of lifts its wings up in like an almost rampant fashion. And then he looks back over his shoulders, "Onward!" And the birds lift up, and you see that there's like a smaller section near the keep, just off a ways as you're kind of coming up and away from it. And you see that the Griffin riders are actually taking to flight just after the Golden Wings take to flight. And the birds fly pretty quickly, but certainly not as quickly as you would hope. In that during the first day, it's pretty much an eventful flying for quite a few hours until night falls. Does anybody have anything that they want to exchange or like talk to their riders? It seems that the riders are pretty confident in just, being quiet and not talking to anybody, because it's what they do all the time, but you're not sure if they'll respond or talk to you if you want to.
If he's able to hear me while we're flying,
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask, Aynard was his name?
Mm-hmm.
How Shimmer's mate died. He said it was at the hands of other lizard folk.
Aye. The king ordered us Golden Wings to travel to a town called what was it? Small town, a little tiny town, Howlerton. Yes, there was a lord there, a fellow named Lord Bray, who had a sword that was desired by the king for some reason or another, and Lord Highwind had to fell that man. After defeating him and taking his sword back to the bird, we began our flight. And as you can see, even now, we keep at a lower altitude as we make our way up to a more reasonable flying point. We passed over some hills and a bit of swampland, and we were attacked from the ground. The bird Glint was hit, and she fell. Shimmer flew down to protect her, even though it was far too late. And us other riders flew in to deal with the small group. Most of them escaped back into the trees and marshlands where we could not follow. We were able to recover the rider, who unfortunately is not with us. Not that he passed away, he is just no longer combat worthy. And Glint's body was left there in the wilds. No doubt consumed by the lizard folk after we fled.
I am sorry to hear that. I want you and your men to know I don't have any ties to the lizard folk.
We
I
were-
myself am an orphan.
We were told that you were traveling with this group, and you seemed less savage than your kin may seem. And I'm sure that they do what they do because they do not know any other way. I am not put off by your presence, Cypress, nor do I think any of our company are. Benjamin may hold a tepid resentment, but I doubt that it's anything more than just emotion rather than thought out hatred.
Your people have every right to feel the way they do.
Not against you. You're not them. You're not the...
And I'll just continue the rest of the flight in silence. I was just curious.
Anybody else? Nothing? Okay. It gets really, really cold and
Just two durants riding on a bird.
really, really cold and dark, and you see that Seth's sword, he raises it up over his head, and it kind of starts to shimmer with light, as if the spell light was cast upon it, and then you see it wave downwards. As you kind of turn your eyes in the direction that he pointed down, you see that there's a ridge of slightly snow-covered peaks, and the birds start to kind of circle down and descend to a specific location. It looks like that's what he designated with his sword pointing. The birds hit the ground, and you see Seth kind of hop off of his mount and start walking on foot in a specific direction. He stops at like the edge of a perimeter there, looks over his shoulder, and he says, "Benjamin, Tenon, you're with me," and starts walking away from where the birds landed. And he says, "The rest of you, settle the birds ready at camp." Those three head off into what looks like just darkness, but you do see his sword kind of leading the way. Does anybody in the group after landing have anything they want to do in specific?
Before Benjamin leaves, can I ask him like where he's going or what they're doing?
You're not our charge, so there is no order for you not to follow. And he continues on.
Follow. I'm gonna see where they're going.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Ethel
Is
as
there
well?
any kind of river or body
Yeah.
of water?
No, you guys are up on a pretty high, like, mountain, rocky area. A couple of trees
Okay, then I'll
and
follow
such.
them.
Okay. Looks like there's a path not too far from where he's heading. As he gets to another point, you see Seth's body kind of like go from walking proudly to drop down like low, and the sword just becomes absolutely like cold. And he looks over his shoulder and he says, "Benjamin, your eyes are better. Move forward." Benjamin nods his head, kind of starts moving forward. Seth kind of backs away from the ridge that he was coming up over, and he looks to Cypress and he says, "Can you see in this darkness, or are you not like other green-skinned people?"
I'm afraid I'm not of any help.
"No worries, your eyes are as good as mine. Stay back."
I drop down and stay nearby.
Ethel, you're able to overhear that conversation.
So could I go ahead and look?
If you're heading forward, if you're advancing to the front of the group, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You hear Seth say, "Milady, please. It might be too dangerous for an elf as fine as you." Do you ignore his words or just stay back?
Could I just cautiously go forward a
You
little
go
bit?
forward basically without listening to him. You head up behind Benjamin, and Benjamin's slowly kind of stalking low. His armor still kind of makes a bit of sound, but it looks like he is a lot better at concealing a sound. He looks over his shoulder and says to you, "Milady, do you see that?" And he points up ahead. You see what looks like a mound. Make a perception check.
Okay. $11.
Okay. Your eyes kind of focus in on it a bit more, and then you do see kind of like the outline of what it is. It appears to be a form laying out on the ground, not so much like a mound of earth. And as you focus in on it more, you realize it's a hill giant. And he kind of says, "Do you see it? Can you tell if
Is
it's...
it lying on the ground or is it standing?
It is lying on the ground."
Okay.
Yeah, and he says, "Can you tell if it's asleep or what's happening?"
Can I
Medicine.
just medicine check?
Yep.
26?
It's not breathing. You would be able to tell if
But-
it was breathing.
Okay, so I would definitely mention that to Benjin. Are there any other hostile type creatures around it?
It's completely quiet and still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
So I'd
he's,
say that as well.
he says, I'll advance and check it out. If you want to call the others up, they should be able to advance.
I'll do that.
Yep. And as you're looking at him, every time he looks over his shoulder, you notice that his eyes have like a golden glow to them that you didn't notice in the daylight before, or the evening light before. And he heads off. And then you head back.
Yeah, I'd head back, tell the others what I saw, and tell them to advance.
Seth stands up, sword goes back to light, and he starts to advance up. Benjamin seems to be making his way back over as you guys are coming up onto this small little ridge that the dead hill giant is upon. He looks to Benjamin and report. It's a hill giant, my lord. It looks like it has been felled by axe blows and a pretty stern dagger blow to the back of the head. I don't know who did this, but they were of human stature. Seth nods his head. So you're saying that there might be attackers lurking in the woods? Benjamin shakes his head. No, it looks like they continued on into that cave pass there. And he kind of gestures to what looks like a small cave passage. We'll set up camp then. Feel free to investigate any further fellows. I will meet you back at camp and we'll have it secured by the time you arrive back. Him and his light sword and also the other knight Benjamin start to retreat back. Isaac, it's dark.
Damn, it is dark. Right now it's just me and Ithel, or is the whole squad here?
Cypress. The other two stayed at the camp. While that's going on, Jun, it looks like they're setting up camp pretty reasonably. It looks like they're forming a ring around like the ridge that they're on, the plateau that they're on, with their birds. And the birds are kind of like turning their heads and watching outwards. And then they set up a fire in the center ring, and it kind of lights out towards the edge where the golden feathers of the birds are kind of shining in the light.
After dismounting, I just kind of stand around until somebody directs me with what to do or invites me in.
Okay. You're not kept outside of the ring. You're kept inside the ring.
Well, I know that, but until I'm like formally invited to like do something or asked to do it, I'm just
sure.
gonna stand there.
No, yeah, they don't ask anything of you. It looks like they're kind of like in standard
That's what I
operating.
assumed.
Yeah. One of them walks over to you and hands you a loaf of bread, and then kind of reaches into his pack and pulls out a leather satchel and hands that to you as well.
I'll accept them.
Yep. You recognize them as standard. I mean, well, you probably don't recognize them, but you eventually identify them as standard military rations. It looks like the leather pouch.
Bread and water.
Well, the leather pouch is actually just containing looks like cheese and dried meat. Doesn't look like water is granted to you.
Okay, yeah. I make a sandwich.
Perfect. Looks like a couple of the other soldiers are doing so as well.
Gratefully.
I mean, it's
Not
pretty.
being a total dick right now.
To be sure, it's pretty good.
Give me a minute.
Well, somebody got humbled by a by a tiny little
He just
gnome.
keeps thinking back to that gnome.
I assure you, it was the elvish wine and not the gnome.
Lazarus, do you do anything in the camp while it's being set up around you?
I play the lyre.
Okay. A couple of the soldiers kind of walk over and sit near you and kind of like take interest. Make a performance check.
Do the rap.
16.
Do the rap.
They are actually amicable to your performance, and they seem very entranced by it. A couple of them are still talking, but it sounds like they're talking about things that kind of relate to the song that you're playing, like to old times of past joy and merriment, and so on. Back up on the ridge with the hill giant, Ithel.
Do any of the guards down here look like drunkards?
No.
Dang.
These look like, if you've seen the movie 300, up armor them. It looks like those guys.
That's an armor full of drunkards.
No. Cypress, Isaac, and Ithel. It's dark. Ithel, you're the only one that can see. There's a dead hill giant. There's a cavern pass.
a cavern pass.
Yep. So as you kind of look in that direction, you can kind of see that starlight kind of seems to be shimmering on the other side through it. Looks like it's a long tunnel that's been bored through the mountain, which actually goes up a bit more. But you're pretty sure that if you walked out of that passage, you'd appear on the other side of the mountain.
Right. So where is Seth at this point? Because I'd want to tell him that if he doesn't already know it.
It seemed that him and Benjamin kind of dismissively recognized it as what it was and left.
And left for the passage.
Back for the camp.
Back to the camp. Okay. So I would mention that to the others in the group, Isaac and Cypress.
Both of them are currently blind because the sword was taken away. If they stay, if you guys continued with return back with Seth, then that's different.
Yeah, let's do that. Return back. I don't
No.
think it makes sense to go forward.
No investigations of your
unless-
own. Okay.
Can
Don't wanna
I
check-
check the giant for if he's carrying anything?
What
dark
lights?
though, right?
But what light source are you going to utilize? It's dark.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Then
Maybe
I'm
I could
following it.
confer with the others and say, is it worth, me risking it going to the cavern myself, lighting torches, or should we just head back and investigate in the morning?
Let's
Oh,
see.
if we're gonna be, I doubt we'll be attacked. It'd have to be a pretty sizable force or a very sneaky one to come into essentially a military camp surrounded by giant 20-foot eagles. They could be super sneaky though. Like
No,
we
what I'm
could.
saying, I'm sorry, it's just, right now, it's just the three of us, and the rest of the group has gone back to the camp, and the question is whether we go forward towards this passage and check out the hill giant in the cavern.
No,
Just-
hill
just the
giant's
three of
not
us, right?
real quick. The hill giant's not in the cavern. The hill giant's off to the side. It looks like, according to what Benjamin said of his tracking it, he stated that the assailants that killed this hill giant did so with dagger and axe and sword. But they left, and they left through the cavern passage. And so the question that Seth had asked Benjamin was, do you think these assailants are still about? And Benjamin said no. I believe they went off through that cavern passage, which basically denotes that they were trying to get off the mountain, not stay up here. It's going to be cold.
Right, okay. So it's just the three of us right now. The rest of the people, Seth and the others, have gone back to the camp.
Correct.
Yeah, let's go back to the camp. I doubt
Yeah.
there's anything in that cavern.
So-
They're long gone.
Okay, nobody wants to check out the hill giant or anything to that effect.
Like-
Okay, cool.
I was gonna say the last thing we'll do is I'll light a torch so I can actually see. Is the hill giant? Is the blood on the hill giant? Is it has it start to freeze or coagulate, or is it still pretty fresh?
Looks like
is it warm?
it's been here for medicine check.
The old medicine check o'clock.
Um,
You can
can
assist him in that; he'll have advantage, or you can both roll your own.
I'd rather give up Ithel. He's
Okay.
more.
You're
He's good at that.
You're broaching the questions, and she's actually checking it out. Got it.
okay, shall I roll?
Yes. With advantage.
26.
Okay. This hill giant's been dead for about 6 hours, give or take. Looks like it was indeed killed with axe blows, daggers. It looks like the telling blow was a dagger to the back of the head. But the dagger, it looks like it has a very jagged blade, like almost like it was made out of like obsidian or flint or something. You're not sure. The other blows are very clean, like they were performed by real weapons, not things that are made out of stone or rock. The hill giant also appears to have all of its belongings still on its person. A very large satchel bag that seems to be filled with, from what you can tell, a couple of frozen arms and legs. But you can also see that there's a glint of metal inside of the bag as well.
Would we know what kind of creatures typically use obsidian as weapons?
You're not 100% sure, I mean, even with that high medicine check, exactly what the composite nature of the blade was, but you're pretty sure, based on the renting of the blow, if it really was a rock or obsidian, it would have broke. So whatever it was some sort of indestructible rock, is all you can tell.
In these parts, I would assume orcs, but I don't know. I'm gonna pull where that metal thing is. I'll also take a look at it. That was in the bag.
Ithel would be able to know that it doesn't seem to be orcs. The blows are pretty, clean, except for that last one. You go check out the metal in the bag. Inside, you find there are a lot of dead parts. Looks of some of them have actually been chewed on. Like this was basically like a bag of goodies for him to chew upon. And at the base of like the frozen blood and ichor, you see that there's a suit of breastplate, kind of sitting close to the top. And it looks like inside the bag, kind of stumbling more, there's a lot of coins settled at the bottom of the sack. And there do appear to be a number of strange shields with all different kind of markings upon them. All of them round shields, but all different types of markings.
Should take that back.
Oh, these are ill-gotten gains. We shall relieve this oaf of them. We'll take it all.
Are they body parts of humanoids? Or...
Humanoids, yeah. You see flesh that looks like it might have been like, a human. Some, darker skinned humans as well. And then you do see that it looks like there are some green-skinned body parts as well. There's not enough of them to kind of like, oh, this is this person's face.
Right.
But you do see like there are broken portions of where the face might have been connected to. It looks like the giant basically had the thing, ate the head, and then has kept the other parts and has kind of chewed on them down to like nubs.
Attack on sight and
Yeah.
So would I think that the obsidian blade might have been a drow user?
You're not sure. Like again, the true nature of the blade attack, that last blade attack, is the most confounding one. In that, if it was an obsidian dagger, the force of the blow looks like it would have broken the blade and it would have remained inside. It's not inside. So whatever it was an indestructible rock.
Are there any dwarves in the party?
No.
Back at the cavern camp? Okay.
All humans.
Okay. I think we should go back.
Well, all
Yeah, maybe someone could recognize some of the markings on these shields
Okay.
or something like that.
3 shields, 1 suit of breastplate, and about 350 gold pieces.
Does the breastplate seem usable?
Yeah, very functional.
I'll probably spend the evening cleaning the gore off it.
Yeah, it looks like it was actually made in the Elvish style, and the metal of it is, as you kind of start to kind of polish it once you guys get back to the camp, it looks like it's a very shiny, very silver-looking metal. All right, so you're back at the camp. Everybody's reunited. Yeah, field questions.
Is there anything good about these shields? Are they wooden shields? Are they metal?
They are wood with metal like arounds and bolts throughout. Single handle kind of strap as well. Very typical for tribal folk. The markings on the 3 shields, 2 of them have the same marking but slightly different in that it looks like it is a raven kind of from below. Just kind of painted the outline of it. But one of them, the head is kind of turned to the right. The other one, the head looks like it's pointed like upwards toward the top of the shield. And then the third shield, the last of the shields, it appears that the marking on it appears to be kind of like a very stylized pattern that doesn't really make any sense. It's just a very stylized looking kind of, yeah, it's the best example I can kind of give you is kind of like a Gaelic knot kind of
That's
thing.
what I was thinking you were going for.
Yeah.
Okay.
We ask our wizard if-
Nothing particularly better than my barrel lid. Impromptu
They'd
shield, right?
probably serve better than your barrel lid. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
After I clean off the breastplate, I want to give it to Ithel. I'm like, it's an elvish style breastplate, and it's a little light for my taste. I like something a little more sturdy, so I think it'd be better for you.
Can I wear that and
Medium
stand out with-
armor.
So that's good.
Breastplate is medium armor, and I think it's 15 plus your dex.
Awesome.
And if you take some
Wait.
time, kind of like in a short rest kind of pattern or just long rest pattern to figure out what it is, it's a suit of mithril breastplate.
Wow.
You do notice
Yeah.
as you're cleaning, once you finally cleaned it off, you do notice that whatever was wearing it, it looks like it was stabbed kind of in the chest area, but it's just a large kind of like burnish mark. It doesn't look like it dented the breastplate. And then after it hit them with the force of that blow, you assume it came to finishing time.
Okay, so it's 15 plus dex.
Yeah, just look up breastplate in the player's handbook, or just pull it from the compendium, and then you actually should be able to find mithril breastplate in the compendium.
Okay. And could we have our wizard look at the shields to see if they're magical?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
The shields are not magical, and the symbolage doesn't really make much of sense unless you make a history check.
Yeah. 15.
Pretty good. You're pretty sure that these are just like human nomad tribes that kind of wander in the areas. The Raven looked kind of familiar. You remember a tribe known as the Vajothgarn, who have the Raven as their symbol.
So it's just like barbarian tribes of humans.
Yeah, nomads.
It is
I-
what it is.
Guess I'll swap out the barrel lid for the raven looking up
Okay,
symboled shield.
sounds good.
Class it up a little bit.
All right. Okay, and then to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like watches are pretty much accounted for, so nobody really has to stay up for anything. Does anybody want to stay up and talk to anyone in particular? Of course, continuing to field that option. Take that as a note. Night ends, daylight arises, and they start to ready up the mounts. They head south. Once they get on the horses, or the horses, on the eagles, they get you guys set up. Same pattern as before, cinching and readying for fall, and they fly off. It's not very long after you guys take off from the mountain here that you arrive to a point where you can see the city of Netton. But when you see the city of Netton, what you see as well is a single conglomerate ship directly above it, sitting above it, just like the one sat above the city of Draen's. This one, however, does not look like it has bombarded anything. There doesn't look like there's a massive destruction on the city here. Seth kind of raises his sword, points towards the ship, and Benji kind of looks over his shoulder at Cypress and says, the plan is to board the ship. The Eagle Riders will basically try and land you on the ship, and also land on the ship as well, and work our way across the deck of the ship. If your intents with your group are to go below.
Can I try to get Aynard's attention, my Eagle Rider?
Oh, sorry, your Eagle Rider is Aynard. I apologize. Benjamin was Isaac's. But Isaac's telling... I meant to say... We're talking to Isaac.
No, it's fine.
I'm talking to Isaac, not you. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
I did the wrong thing.
Okay.
Benjamin's
No,
the one that's talking. Isaac's the one that's receiving. I don't know why I said Cypress. Dirt moment. But Isaac, he's basically telling you what the plan of attack is.
Yeah, sounds good. Get us in. We'll take it from there.
Okay.
Can I try to get anyone's attention that's involved in flying the birds? Would it not be a better idea to try to get the ship away from Netton? If the occurrence in Draen's is any
you say that,
standpoint?
and he says to you, "We are going to attack and take over the deck of the ship. Once that's done, we will be moving the ship, doing our best to move the ship away from the city." That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of says, we're not going to just let it fall on the city. Look at it. And as you do, you see that it's just a bunch of elvish-styled like spires and very just old elvish architecture. It looks beautiful. Gorgeous.
I would just hate for this one to explode too.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been destroyed, and it doesn't look like... it does look like the ship's been here for a while, like it's set up in its station. The birds start to kind of ride out towards it, and as they do so, you see movement on the deck of the ship, and on the back end you see about 5 of the automatons kind of rise up from the back and kind of situate themselves. But these ones are different in that their arms do not have blades or shields on them. Instead, they have very large barrels attached to them. And they all kind of just gesture with these barrels, pointing them in your direction. Seth's sword is pointing forward, and it looks like the riders are kind of riding off in that direction. Anybody want to do anything before the inevitable happens?
I'm gonna tap my driver on the shoulder and tell him to go up.
He
Shouldn't we dive?
kind of looks to you, like for a second, and then very quickly puts his eyes back on Seth's sword.
If he can hear me, I'll speak to him. Like, let's get the surprise and come in from the top.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like after he gives you that one bit of attention, it looks like his attention no longer like is given to you. You see the barrels start to kind of flicker with light, and then Seth's sword goes up, and all of the riders kind of tense up and hold themselves down in a very just reactionary fashion. As the blue kind of stills up, you hear Seth's voice over the wind, loud, booming, almost like it was magnified by thaumaturgy. Yell out, "On my mark!" And you guys watch as the beams are about to ignite out of the barrels. Seth's sword.
I thought we still get a chance to do stuff before it happens.
Go ahead.
Oh, just before I was gonna whisper to Benjamin, I'll say today is the day that Shimmer finds his courage again. And I want to cast Shield of Faith on the bird, like touch his side and like bless him. And in case we get fucking shot at, I want to support my bird. He's my boy now.
As the spell takes hold on the bird, you see the shield kind of circling around, kind of looking for a place to kind of position itself, and then it locks like on his chest, and you see it kind of glow brighter than you've seen it glow when you've cast it before, almost as if it's been magnified by the bird. He raises his sword up and pushes it down just as the beams are about to be released. All of the birds in unison dive down and then very quickly ascend upwards and around. Everybody make a Constitution saving throw.
16.
7.
16.
Oh, 8. Jeez.
You rolled an 8.
Yeah.
Were you rolling to me? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, you're not on the board,
I don't
Isaac.
see it either.
You might have been rolling to yourself. I don't know if you've...
Oh,
There it is.
Yep. It just
Figured.
took to lag.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Apparently elves and paladins were not made to fly, and you feel your stomach go kind of being pulled away from the ground and up and around. The rest of you, John's done some cartwheels, Cypress is a swimmer, and Lazarus knows magic. So this is not a big deal for you, but everyone that sucks at this, you just feel like everything kind of torn about, like inside of you, like your stomach just feels very queasy. And as it kind of flips up and around and lands on the deck of the ship, all 15 of the birds in unison, you see that the ones in the back, you guys are kind of closer to the middle, and Seth's is at the front. You watch as the ones at the back start kind of grasping at the top portions of the automatons before they can turn around, start pulling and ripping and pushing, and then all 5 of those automatons get kicked off the back end of the ship. Towards the front end, you see that Seth and 2 other of his knights are basically, the birds are riding in low and like walking across the deck of the ship, and Seth's huge greatsword in one hand swings it down and cuts down a mage. Another mage starts to ready a spell, and one of the other people on his side kind of looks up to it and kind of raises his hand, and you see this white energy kind of appear about Seth, and then you see the caster kind of stop and kind of look at him as if he was stopped by the white force, kind of looks off looking for another target, points at a different bird, points at the bird that Isaac cast a shield on, shoots the strange arcane bolt at it, and the shield blocks it. The shield of faith blocks it. The birds start to kind of just migrate towards the front of the ship, grabbing and rending as the riders are basically reaching down and cutting what they can reach, and your riders are kind of moving out as well, and they kind of move to a position where you can see that there are downhole points into the deck. Benjamin looks over his shoulder at you, Isaac, and says, "This is your chance. Go. Figure out if you can find out how to pilot it." And the birds basically like a wave, like just start migrating across of it. It's like chickens in a chicken roost, like just.
Yeah, jump off and let's go.
Okay.
In the hole.
You guys see Isaac hop off, and you kind of like you hop off of a 20-foot high bird, but you feel yourself kind of descend down to the ground nominally.
I'm gonna follow suit, but before I go, I'm gonna whisper, or not whisper, but tell to my guy to pass the word along. If something goes wrong, make sure the birds grab the deck of the ship. Don't let it make ground.
Got it. We'll keep it informed.
I'm gonna climb down the bird so I can go faster than Featherfall.
Okay. You down the bird. Okay. Everybody else?
Just jump off.
I'm
Off
jumping
and
off,
float down.
and if I we have Featherfall for jumping off.
Yeah.
If I may, beast shape as we're jumping to the deck into a black bear.
Okay. You guys watch the lizard folk basically like start to bulge out and kind of become slightly taller, and his scales kind of make way for black fur and kind of like a tuft of brown and white fur on his stomach as he kind of comes down and hits the ground, then taking onto a 4-footed stance. Okay. There are 2 points of egress. There's one on the starboard side and there's one on the port side. And it looks like there's a third point of entrance, which is kind of in the center near where you assume the ship is piloted. It looks like a wheel, but it looks like there's a bunch of artifice around the wheel. It almost looks like a orrery in actuality. Lazarus, you can make a Arcana check.
16.
You're pretty sure, based on what you can see from here, you could probably pilot it.
I got this.
Okay. So what are you guys doing? Going from left to right. Andy?
Baby driver. I'm gonna follow Isaac.
Okay. So she glomps to Isaac, prepared to move. Steve, where are you going? There's a port side, starboard side, middle point of egress, the wheel.
You said middle point is the wheel?
So there's a point, so like, it's kind of like a poop deck, like it's raised up deck above like the rest of the deck that you're currently on. The birds are kind of marching down across. There's like an entranceway into kind of the facing that deck kind of creates. And then there are 2 side entryways that are just kind of stairways down into the deck.
Alright, and we're dead center, so it's pretty much even.
You are basically at the center of the ship. It looks like towards the front of the ship there might be like a hatchway that enters into the ship, and you can't really see too much onto the poop deck, but as you crossed over it, that's where the first way, or the 5 Nyctalopes were, and also a couple of mages that got ripped apart very early on in the conflict.
Alright, we'll go through. I'm gonna head for the center.
Could I touch Isaac and cast guidance?
Yeah, certainly. So you were wanting to go towards the entryway down that's in the center underneath the orrery, or just the center of the ship?
The one that goes like down and into the ship. Like
Okay, so you're
inside.
basically going into the poop deck, basically.
Yeah. You gotta find the jar of elementals or whatever.
Okay. And then, Jeremy? I think he's frozen. He's not moving.
Power dropped out.
Oh,
Okay.
says back in a minute.
Alright. Well, deal with the broken stream for the moment. Looks like the Canadians are kind of hiding behind the bars. And I'll switch that stuff in a second. We're almost close to the close of the thing, so we won't get too terribly involved with that. He will just be glomped to
Isaac, he says.
Isaac. Okay. And then next up would be Zach. What's Cypress doing?
If we're moving as a group, I'm coming up with them. I'm gonna try to make a path for them if I can. Charge ahead.
Okay. And then Lazarus, are you going with them as well, or are you going to make your own way?
What's in between like me and the wheel?
Absolutely nothing.
But it's probably not gonna remain like that.
In all honesty, the things that were stationed around the wheel were ripped apart by the birds, or the swords of the people riding them.
Then, yeah, I guess I'm gonna motion for the wheel. Like, I'll go for the wheel. I'll let Beauregard, who's now an owl, out of my robe, so he's out and about, chilling with us. And yeah, I go for the wheel.
So basically, the bird will kind of watch your back, and you do see that there are about 3 remaining large giant eagles that are still up on the poop deck once you get up there. You do notice that one of the riders appears to be Tenon, which was one of the 2 that were called by Seth directly. It looks like he's leading the group of 3 in the back. He kind of looks to you and he says, "You meaning to fly this thing?"
Most certainly am going to try.
This fucking day is a victory already. And he just seems to have like all of the joy of someone who is winning the day. All right, you guys head down into the underbelly of the ship. Once you make it down, the very first thing you see is a person kind of looking at you inside of a smaller kind of entryway. He's holding a staff, but he very quickly drops it to the ground and raises his hands, and he says, "I have no desire to fight you."
Take us to the power station.
You wish
The air elementals.
You wish to deal with the spell core? Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about?
Take us to the spell core.
I can take you. Yes.
All right, I grab him by the back of his scruff and like kind of shove him forward, like go, lead the way.
Okay. He leads you, and every so often he runs into guardsmen. He says, "Halt, please! They have taken the top of the ship. They have us. They have us under their control. We are surrendering." And you can see that this guy, as you're kind of walking with him, is wearing white robes and kind of a red robe underneath. And he says, "Let us go. We can get there." And then you kind of walk, and the other people are kind of just backing away, just staying back. Quite a lot of them, though. Probably 20 or so that you're passing by.
Can I pay attention to see if he is trying to deceive us? So what do I think about
an
him?
insight check. Yeah, it seems like he's leading you into a place where you cannot escape, and then it seems like he'll probably try to detain you with
So
the
I'm
people you're
gonna
leaving behind.
try to stop Isaac and tell him I think he's trying to trap us.
All right, I'll stop and I'll kind of like yank the guy down.
Okay. As you're doing so, he yells out something in a strange language you don't know, unless you speak Janarin, and you see all of the other guards start to kind of reach for their weapons. And that's probably a good stopping point for this session, in all earnest. It seems like in the room that you kind of actually engaged that, we'll say that there's probably about 5 of those guards present, the soldiers for the conglomerate.
Did he look like the guards we fought on the rooftops, or not so elite?
They do not look as elite as they did. Yeah, they don't look venerable, they look young.
That's good.
All right, that's a relief.
Yeah, because 5 of them with 15 in the waiting is probably not a good... No. No bueno.
Fair, but still.
Okay. Any questions for me before I kill the stream that need to be open or voiced openly? None. Okay. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week. And I believe for those watching, if anybody is, next week will be the last session for a couple of weeks. We'll be off the 30th and we'll be off the 7th, but we will return on the 14th. Okay. All right. Just stopping the stream.